Hey everybody, I am so excited about our sponsor for this month, the Experience Live with Russ and Scott. It's the Gillot Home Team and Laura Gillot. How are you doing, Laura?
I'm doing wonderful.
That is so awesome. You know, the Gillot Home Team is doing so much in real estate. Give us a snapshot of what you're up to.
Awesome. Well, last year we were able to help 551 families either buy or sell real estate. We love our community. We love our clients. Our mission is to deliver the keys to home ownership through stellar customer service, integrity, and joy. And we're looking to help even more folks this year.
That is so awesome. You know, if you want a team that is there for you, it's the Gillot Home Team and Laura Gillot. And thanks so much, Laura, for your sponsorship. Good morning. Woo! How are you doing this morning, Scott?
Man, Russ, I am great, but yesterday was wonderful because we actually got to meet face to face for the first time in a while. So that was pretty wonderful.
It was great. Yeah, it's nice to be able to get out a little bit. Yesterday was a great face to face connecting and networking marketing day. I enjoyed it. So it was great to see you yesterday in person.
Yeah, that's good. And you know, as I was watching the intro credits there, talking about wonderful guests, and each week I think, how are we going to top this show? But we've got some great guests today. Conrad and Joseph coming in. It's going to be a great morning again, or maybe a great afternoon, depending on where in the world you are.
That's right. I mean, Joseph is in his afternoon and over in Ireland. So it does matter where you are. But, you know, I'm just excited to be here. I mean, I just love any chance I get to chat with you and all of our wonderful guests. And, you know, I just hope and pray every time that we do this, that people gain such great value from the people that we have on. And so what a blessing it is today. So, hey, before we get rolling, just wanted to find out what you have going on this week.
Well, so we got a couple of things. The big monthly deal is the virtual global tea break Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. Eastern. So it depends again where in the world you are, but that is a wonderful free networking event. We get people from usually, mostly I'll say, from the US, Canada, Ireland, and UK, but we get other countries represented as well. But it's a great networking time that I co-host with Alan Hennessy. And then tomorrow, today's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday, we get the Business Builder Throwdown, and I get to moderate that. And so with Matt Rouse and Holly Jackson. But the new thing that I've got is I am now broadcasting on Amazon. So Amazon Live. And so coming up, if you put in motivationallistener.live, you'll be able to see my broadcasts over there. And I'm going to be doing book shows. So bringing in some famous authors like the author of Befuddled, Live the Life You Choose, and many others, including we've got Colm O'Brien going to be coming in, and Aaron Walker with A View from the Top, the leader of the Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I'm looking forward to being able to collaborate with you a little bit on that on the Amazon. Also, don't forget that this afternoon we have a special, the Experience Plus, with Madeline Scalar at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So wherever you are, 1 p.m. our time on the Pacific Coast, Madeline will be on. She is the queen of Twitter. And just want to remind everybody, I have a book signing and promotion this Saturday, Gresham, Oregon. And so if you're in the area, the Portland, Oregon area, come out to Gresham to the Rainbow West store out there. And you can look for more information about that on social media. So super excited about that. But I think that's enough about you and I, Scott. I think we should bring in Joseph and get this show started.
Let's get to the good part.
Okay. Look at that. There he is. Joseph.
All right.
So
good morning,
Joseph,
gentlemen.
on your
Afternoon from Dublin.
Yeah, thank you. On your initial read of us, how were our facial expressions on the opening?
Oh, your halos are glowing. Your halos are glowing.
I love that.
So listen, I just love what you're all about. And of course, I've read your book. And speaking of authors, Joseph, give us a little snapshot into your world and all you're up to these days.
Oh wow! World has changed. World has turned upside down for all of us, I guess, in the past year. So it's all online. We get to meet great people that we probably never have otherwise met. So what I'm doing is basically teaching my clients how to build exceptional relationships online and off at this stage, just through reading their facial features, working a lot with negotiation, and really helping people talk to each other, listen to each other, so that they're not talking at or across each other, which is unfortunately so often what happens both in our home and in our professional lives.
Yeah, I think that you said it right. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, things have really changed this last year. And people, I think, need more guidance and direction than ever. And I just love you're just so unique in all that you do. Tell us a little bit about the kind of clients you work with and a little bit more about what you help them do.
Okay, very simply, what I work with is primarily an ancient Chinese system, which is literally reading people's faces. People's static facial features reveal a huge amount of information about who they are, where they've come from in terms of their personality, behavior style, how they communicate, stress triggers and responses, and a lot more besides. And typically what I would do, or what I would have been doing in what we used to call the normal world, was sitting in on interviews for senior level roles, helping people read the people across the table. So, the CV and the qualifications would tell you something, but when you get to meet the real person, it's often completely different. So I would be I'd be kind of like the undercover spy. I'd be introduced as a colleague or an associate rather than the interviewee knowing what I'm there actually for. Then I'd help teams with their communication, because the fact that technically we're speaking the same language doesn't mean we're actually speaking the same language. And now where everything is multicultural, there's a whole other sort of level thrown in there. So I'm helping people now, helping teams again with that communication factor, recognizing from their facial features how we each process information, how we need information presented to us so that we can absorb it effectively, and then so that we can work to maximum potential. And I work a lot also then with individuals, because a lot of what's happened in the last year is people, certainly in Ireland, are in lockdown with people they thought they knew and loved, and realizing we've got a few challenges here. So I'm not there to fix relationships, but again, I'm helping people recognize each other's patterns and how they need to communicate to really build things and refresh things, and again, make things exceptional.
I like the fact that you're talking about the multicultural aspect. And I was thinking of that book, was it Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands?
Mm-hmm.
And how some things that we think are appropriate may really be inappropriate across different cultures or subcultures.
Absolutely. Even very simple gestures like thumbs up in our culture is a really positive sign, but in some cultures, that's one of the highest insults you can give. So we need to be very, very careful.
I wouldn't do good in that culture. Well, what I love about you, Joseph, we become such great friends. And I was talking with some other friends from Dublin the other day, and I can't wait till I can actually get over there to Dublin and bring my family, and I can meet you all in the airport and we can all whoop it up and it'll be just so much fun. But you've got such a calming spirit, and you just are such an easy guy to speak with. And I'm sure that helps with when you're talking to people and explaining, how they can communicate better and how their facial expressions make a difference. Because I think I'd be too hyper for that.
You said that, Russ, not me. But one of the key life skills, and interestingly enough, aside from what I've traditionally been doing over the last 30, 40 years, is the last couple of years in particular, I've been studying a lot of what the FBI have been doing in terms of their hostage negotiation, but also their interrogation and counter-interrogation training. And a lot of what their emphasis is on is actually listening. And that's one of the key things, that people want to be listened to, and people want to feel heard. And if we give them that, then it really just opens the door for business, social relationships, and people feel a sense of trust. They feel respect, and they respond. So listening and showing people that we're actually really paying attention to them makes such a massive difference, and it's a simple thing.
And you know, I'm all about listening, so I love that that's what you've been studying.
Motivational listener. You know, I'm glad I'm around you guys, because we all can continually work on our listening skills. And, you know, speaking of listening skills, a lot of times when we listen and pay attention, it helps us better use our time and spend better time management. And speaking of that, we have Conrad, who we're going to bring in.
Hey.
There he is, who is a time management coach, who I'm sure spends his time listening to people about all they're doing. And he's going, whoa, you need to think about your time. How's it going, Conrad?
How are you? Thanks for having me, Russ and Scott. And it's great to meet with you, Joseph.
Cheers, Conrad.
Yeah, you know, I want to start right off with just giving you a chance. You know, I know all about what you're doing. Why don't you tell everybody what you're all about and what you're up to these days?
Sure. So, Russ, as you mentioned, I'm a time management coach and consultant. My company is called Well Aware, and our main focus is on just helping business owners and professionals be more understanding of how they're spending their time across all 24 hours of the day. We really get hard into the data behind each of the different behaviors that they could be performing throughout, and really try to help them understand how do they get more of those performances that they want to do, whether it's just eat better, sleep better, do more inside of their workspace, or just spiritually kind of improve themselves on a personal level. We understand the behaviors and actions they're trying to perform, and we help them understand how they can do more of that within their time.
Yeah, don't you find that if people don't have things together as far as their time and really their drive, and I'm big on purpose in their personal life, it affects everything they do, right?
Yeah, there's certainly a cascading effect when one of the categories in your life doesn't have the most optimal output being displaced. There is something that I actually spoke about with someone earlier, a client. We said, time management is a little bit like a cash flow game. If you think about the amount of revenues that you're trying to produce and the amount of expenses that are coming out of it, time works a lot in that way. If you want to perform a lot, you have to manage a lot of those expenses of performance by doing everything that you have to do. And if you don't manage that essential, that time flow, if you will, but it's really just a general flow of things, then you'll start to realize that your expenses just are just going to outweigh whatever revenues you're able to generate in terms of keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself on purpose of what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And that's just going to come back and haunt you. So, yeah.
I love that, because I often think of as time similar to what Dave Ramsey might do with money, where if you go back and you look through your checkbook, you're going to see where your values are. If you go back through your calendar, you're going to do the same thing.
Yeah, we do a lot of that, looking back on the calendar with the client, both to give them the time for them to do that themselves, as well as to kind of walk through the process with them and better understand, because it's exactly to you guys' point about how there's so much to be revealed about a person when you see what they actually end up doing with their time. And that kind of self-awareness is such a critical component. It's why we're called Well Aware in the first place, is to really capture that sense of understanding who you are being. Because it's easy to forget what you had for lunch yesterday, but it's even easier to forget just what you did in the past week. So to kind of go back and reflect on that information, I think it's critical.
Yeah, you know, I think that time reflection, introspection is important in all that we're doing, because really, you know, we don't want to beat ourselves up, but we want to take a look at where we're spending our time, where we're spending our money, all those kind of things. And like you both said, that really tells all about a person and where their values lie. And sometimes we look at that and think, really, those things aren't really reflecting my true values. So I really need to make an adjustment or a change in my schedule to better do that. Now, don't you give people tools, Conrad, to be able to look at their time and how they're spending that?
Yeah, so outside of just using the general calendar, there are a couple different tracking tools that we like to recommend. Definitely those that are open source, very data conscious, so that the privacy of the owner is respected. And then with that, we have a couple other things that we do to just kind of enhance how people go about reviewing their time more systematically. so that it's not just looking at a bunch of counter blocks and going like, okay, what does this entail in terms of what I actually did? Because the other option is to just go into your control search history on your Google browser and be like, oh, here are all the different web pages I browse throughout the day. It's like, okay, well, how long is that going to take for me to take away from what is going on there?
Or look at your phone and the time that you're spending on your phone. I mean, that's a big deal too. So, I think you and Joseph could be a good team because you're getting them all focused on their time. And then Joseph is looking at their facial expressions about how they feel about it. And then he can decide if they're spending it the right way, because maybe they're just not really. Joseph, hey, I want to throw things back to you really quickly. What are, when people are having some communication issues, and you talked about all you're about, how does that tie into their total business and all the things they're doing when it comes to time and everything else? I mean, everything connects one way or the other.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I love that you drop in the simple questions there, Russ. That's quite a big one. Yeah, one of the when we talked about listening a few minutes ago, one of the things to note when we're communicating with people, whether it's online or otherwise, is the position of their eyebrows. And if you notice somebody and you're talking to them and their eyebrows drop, they've stopped listening. They've stopped listening. No matter how wise you are, no matter what great advice you're giving them, whether it's time management or anything else, if the eyebrows drop during the conversation, they're giving you a message to shut up. It's my turn to speak. And it's a simple visual cue that we so often miss, because one of the things we tend to do when in business is we feel compelled to speak. And then it's also paying attention to, not just when they're listening, it's not just paying attention to the words, it's the pitch and the tone of voice and changes that happen. And that tells you a lot about where people's attention really is.
And I think, Joseph, what I'm hearing from you too is that this is really an expansion or a refinement of what is popularly known as emotional intelligence.
Yeah, well, we have to apply emotional intelligence in as much as we have it. And I've certainly been accused on occasion of not, but one learns as one goes. But absolutely, it is applying emotional intelligence, and it's applying empathy when we're engaging with anybody. And empathy is not about feeling sorry for anybody. It's about looking to understand them, looking to understand where they're coming from, putting ourselves in their shoes, and then we can really build connection. And no matter what we're doing in business, the more we can really understand where somebody else is coming from, again, the more we can forge a really solid relationship. And then we feel understood, they feel understood, and the bonds just become so much stronger.
When it comes to intelligence, when it comes to listening and time management, I think, Conrad, a lot of times when people aren't communicating well within an organization, it makes it tough to really be spending their time the way they should, because communication is breaking down. They're not listening to each other. Do you find that a lot?
It depends, but sure, there are some people who certainly don't recognize that they're quote unquote wasting time communicating in ways that are not effective. And they don't necessarily realize that the feedback that they need to hear from the other parties that they're doing any kind of communication with, that it's whatever information they're trying to pass on is not being received as it should be, or as they are intending it to. As a result, certainly time can be lost. But I think back to Joseph's point, I think is a really fantastic one, is like when you really try to empathize with someone along their relationships of time, you're really digging into one of the sort of truths of someone's experience, and you're trying to basically communicate with them in a way that says, I'm not looking down upon you. I have no judgment to cast. I more so just want to share with you X result. I want to change Y process, and I want to look at Z result that comes out instead. I want to sort of give you a compare and contrast to the difference to let you know that like this is what you've been losing out on as a result. This is the time that you could have gained, relatively speaking, had you taken a different approach to this communication path. And just by giving that example in a very concrete, highlighted way, people go, oh, okay, I see now it is. Now I understand.
Yeah. I love this because it's just, there is no minute of any 24-hour day that is not used. right? I mean, it's used for something, but just realizing that if you're going to add something or you're going to change something, you have to give something else up, right? There has to be some sort of trade-off.
There's an ever-present opportunity cost. It's something that a few people get really bogged down over. We like to call that kind of an over-aware element. You're almost overwhelmed by the precipice of like, oh my God, I have a million different opportunities I could be taking myself down. I don't know what is the most optimal path. And what's funny enough is that there's almost like a derivative of thought that goes into that where it says, hold on, I'm actually spending so much time thinking about all my different options. I'm not taking any option at all. And that's actually one of the worst options that I could take. So I have to somehow think through just making some option and getting the opportunity cost driven from that. It may not be the ideal, but it at least puts me in a step above. And then hopefully that gets me into my next rest position or my next review state, which then lets me decide how I'm going to do better from there. Sometimes you get stuck, but it helps to be at least a step above than just kind of constantly brooding, if you will, on the same concept of like, here are my millions of options. What am I going to do in the next hour?
Well, and I think you just said it. It's getting better. It's moving forward and actually taking steps in the right direction as far as using your time wisely. And I think, with everything we do, we've talked about how important communication is. By the way, I think all of us will make sure we don't drop our eyebrows before this is over, but also about our how precious life is. Every moment, time is happening, life is happening, whether we're using it productively or wisely or not. And that's something to always be very thoughtful about, because we don't want to waste the time we have. We don't know how much time we have, so we want to take a positive approach and do all we can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Joseph's point around like things like never split. Joseph, I assume that when you're talking about the FBI stuff, you're mentioning like never split the difference. I can't remember the author's name at this time.
Chris Voss. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, excellent book. So to the point of being able to communicate with people, I think one of the interesting time savers there is leaving every conversation better than you found it, like leaving each person you communicate with on a better state than they originally were. Sometimes you just end up getting up on a networking call and people are like, oh, this turned into therapy. You're like, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, I'm happy that we kind of got you out of whatever state of mind that you were in that needs to kind of help you propel forward. So I think that's a huge part of it. I appreciate Joseph's perspective on being able to recognize when someone is in a certain state based on their facial tone.
Yeah. It's interesting. When you were talking about the FBI, the only thing I could think of, there's a show here in the United States called Bull, and he analyzes juries. I don't know if you've ever watched that show, but he analyzes juries, and I think you'd be great at that. Maybe this is a little side thing. You can sit in, he gets mirror juries, he analyzes the people, and you could be watching their facial expressions and saying, hey, we don't want that juror. Let him go.
It could be a really cool content idea, but like my dad loves the show, by the way. But he's also like probably like rewatched Law and Order like 4 times. So there's a lot of really cool people who like they're like experts in their field, and they like take a show. Like there's a lot of really cool doctors who like take like Grey's Anatomy and go like, there's nothing realistic about that at all. And then there's some moments where they take other shows and they're like, that is exactly what happens in the gym. That could be a cool content piece for you, Joseph.
I think we should have a watch party with Joseph. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah, I'm up for that. Absolutely. Well, I just throw in a little bit. I love where Conrad is coming from. I love the name of the business, but also that whole holistic approach, because I've come across, I'm sure we all have, so many people working in the field of time management, and they approach it as something really rigid and mechanical. And people are not rigid and mechanical. People don't necessarily live logical lives. I mean, behavioral economists are showing us that time and time again. So the fact that he's taking that holistic approach and showing people where they're losing time and where they could be gaining, but the value and the purpose, I mean, that's just so essential. So I'm absolutely delighted to hear that you're coming from that place.
So we are, believe it or not, winding down time, and this has been a great discussion, and people are going to want to know more about both of you. So, Joseph, let's start with you. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I'm just going to say we have used time well today. These half hours have gone well, and I'm just judging by looking at your faces that you all agree.
Absolutely, 100%.
Good morning. All right,
good time, and our eyebrows are all up. So, Joseph, tell us how people get in touch with you.
The easiest way, the quickest way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. My website is in transition at the moment, so I need a lot of work done on that. But LinkedIn is the quickest way to catch me.
Perfect. I'll make sure and put that in the show notes. Conrad, how do people get in touch with you?
Same. I would love to feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to check out my website, www.wellaware.me.
Awesome. Well, that's easy. You guys are just rattle that right off. Good job.
I love that.
Well, listen, we do really appreciate both of you so much. It's been a great show. Make sure and tell everybody, because this sits on the platforms, Facebook and YouTube, after we're done today. And really, honestly, most people watch it on replay. So make sure and share it with all your friends. Let people know. And because the wisdom that you guys have and that you've shared is so valuable. It's so valuable to me, and I appreciate you both. And I know Scott does too, because his eyebrows are up. He's nodding. He's got great facial expressions. So, hey, listen, we're going to use our time well, and we're going to send you both to the green room, but hang tight. We'll be right back with you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, guys. Absolute pleasure.
What a fabulous combination. Yeah.
Oh, they're both such great guys. I mean, we couldn't ask for better guests. We're so blessed. We are. I mean, sometimes I pinch myself and I think, how do I know so many amazing people? And it's probably because of you, Scott. That's probably why I know so many amazing people.
I tell you, Russ, you are the natural connector. I enjoy spending time with you, and this is always a wonderful experience.
That's right, it is. And don't forget, every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time now, and share it with your friends. Tell everybody about that. Have them subscribe to our YouTube. We have the Experience YouTube they can subscribe to. Also, find us on Facebook. Scott's got a business networking group that we're inside of right now, broadcasting. Also, my Russ Edge coach and motivational speaker Facebook. So make sure and share with your friends, because there is so much value in all that's going on here. And I guess we're done for today until we see you again. Have a great day and a great life.
We're done for today until later today, when it's the Experience Plus. And make sure and tune in for the special show with Madeline Sklar.
1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.